Hi everyone. Recently, the email someone wrote to me and said, "I'm wondering if there is planned to be support for cascading dropdowns in the new responsive form builder. It looks like the filter on control option has been removed from list lookups." Well, I'm pleased to say that I can reply to this person and say, hopefully they watch this video, that we have actually solved this problem. So if you come down to the list lookup, we'll drag one on, and first things first, it's much easier to use because we pre-populate the URL and get everything connected for you. All you need to do is come down and say we list project sites. So in my site, I've got a bunch of projects. There's over 1,000 items in here, and they've got things like the site, the project number, state, project manager, and project status. So what I might want to do is to say I want to select by state and then project manager and get the site. So I'm going to say select the view states alphabetical. So I'm going to get SharePoint to sort the states for me, and then select the states. So if we come to preview, we should see a bunch of states. Now the problem is there's a bunch of projects running in Alabama, so I'm going to get a bunch of Alabama in there. Alabamas, sure. And so the first thing we can do is come back to the designer and say click on the control, and I can say display unique values only. So if I come back to preview, it's going to filter all of this out and just give me all the states of the US. So that's really good, but I'm just going to turn that off for a moment because I actually want to show you another feature. So display unique values only off, and since we want 3 dropdowns, we're going to have 3 cascading dropdowns. We can clone that control. This is a new feature. We can clone that control twice, making it much easier because I don't have to go and fill in the URL, what that does automatically, but all of the same, it's the same list, so it just saves me a bit of time. Now I'm going to come back and turn that back on, and I'm going to call this states. There we go. And this one's going to be project manager, and this one is going to be site, isn't it? Or project site. Okay, so now I've got states, project manager, and site. So if I come to here, none of these are linked at the moment. So I select Alabama. I'm going to get a bunch of. Oh, forgot to select the column. So I've got to go back, select the column, and I select project manager and site. Select the site. Okay, so now we come back through here, and these aren't linked together. So you select Alabama, you're still going to get, selected the wrong column, but you're still going to get 1,000 records in here. Now, the other interesting thing about the list lookup in here is you can actually do type ahead. So if I do FOR, it goes and filters all those as well. So if you wanted to, you didn't have to have cascading dropdowns. If you've got a lot of data and you're trying to find something, type ahead can be useful, but some people prefer to have dropdowns as well. So first thing we need to do is fix up that one. So we'll go to the middle one, project manager, and project manager. There he is there. Okay, so now we want to pass the value of this control into this control. So what we need to do is say display, where is it? Show all items, turn that off. And when we turn that off, we get these options here. So we say when state is equal to, and we go insert, and form controls, and we go to states. So we insert that, and we come to here, preview. We'll just test it out before we get too far, and we've broken our first one. There we go, Alabama. Our project manager, now we've got Lawton Fuzzens, and we'll see there's not as many project managers in Alabama. We're in our drop down. Now the final step is we need to filter project manager to sites. So go back to the designer, and we'll go to sites, and we'll say show all list items, turn that off. So then we say when the project manager is equal to insert form controls project manager. Okay, so I think we're nearly there. So we select Alabama, select the Lawton Fuzzens, and we've got 6 Anderson Court. So if I change this one to Barney Harbottle, of course, my good friend Barney Harbottle, and he's on Union Street, which is fantastic. So there we go. So we've got our cascading drop-down solution. Now, some people might ask, well, I don't necessarily want that to be a drop-down. How do I get that data out of there? Interesting question. So if we drop a label on, and this was a bit of an extension of what the question was, but if we drag a label on, and if we put, we do square bracket, and put site in here, we can actually see all our controls and those sort of things. So we put that in, we go to preview, and what you'll see is if I select Alabama, select Lawton Fuzzens, and 6 Anderson Court, that's actually the stored value behind the list lookup control. That's how SharePoint stores some of its data. It goes SharePoint list item ID, delimiter of semicolon hash, and then the string that you see in the dropdown. Why am I telling you this? Well, if we wanted to find out some more data from this selection, we need to go back to here and say, okay, well, I'm looking up number 46, and I want the project manager email. How do I associate those two? Well, as you saw before, we do have the ID, but it's with this other string. So first we need to get this ID out, and then we need to go and ask for the other piece of data, which is the project manager email. So how do I go and do that? Well, let's go and build a couple of variables that will actually help us set this up. So we're going to use a function called the ParseLookup, which is how we get the ID out of that that string from the lookup control. So we parse lookup, and we'll go false, and this will make sense in a moment. False. So if you go parse lookup in here, it'll actually explain the function. I won't go into all the detail, but it basically breaks apart that string into either the ID or the label. So we go insert, and we put in the control we want to get the data out of. So we say site, and we either say false or true. Now false means give me the ID, true means give me the label. So we'll do parse lookup false, and we'll do another one, parse lookup true, just as an example so we can see how this works. So we'll say parse lookup, and we'll go site, and we'll say comma and true. Alright, so we've got our two variables there, so we'll go back to our designer, go back to our label, and we'll start putting this data out. So we're going to say lookup data, and then we'll say parse lookup false, and that's going to be square bracket parse lookup false, there we go, and parse lookup true. What does this give me? So we go parse lookup. Okay, so go to preview. Let's see what we've got. Alabama, Lawton Fuzzens, 6 Anderson Court, and there you go. So now you can see with the lookup data, with the output of the control, we get the two pieces of information. Parse lookup false, we get the ID. Parse lookup true, we get the string. Depending on what you want to do, but that's how it works. Now, that still doesn't help me to get the email address. How do I get the email address when I've got the ID? Again, back to variables. You don't need all these variables if you don't need to. You really just do one and get the email address if you wanted to this way. So we say get email address, and we could take a few more steps, and we could say with this I want to get the email from this list, and I'll actually populate a email control in the form. So we'll look at that in a moment as well. So now we'll go lookup. There you go, lookup function. Now the lookup function is not the easiest thing in the world. It's a bit more advanced, so if we click on this you can have a read of it. So in your own time you can read it out, or I'll just go from memory and say project sites, which is the site I'm querying the data on. Then the next part is what column are you looking for? What column are you going to filter on to find that record that you're looking for? And are we looking for ID? Because we know we've got the ID from the ParseLookup function. The next thing is I need to get the ID from the last dropdown, which was site. So I say ParseLookup, and I could just say ParseLookup true or false here if I wanted to, or I could get rid of those variables and I could say ParseLookup, and I'd say site, get the control, and I'm going to say false. So then I don't need those other variables, or I could pass the other variables if I wanted to. And then finally what we're saying is project manager email, which is the column that I want to get the data from. So I'll just run that through it again. You can actually format this a little bit easier if it's a bit easier to read. So you can sort of break it up like this if you wanted to. You could say something like, oh, I've got project sites is the first thing, which is the site I want to query on. ID is the column I'm looking on. I'm passing the filter on the value I'm filtering with, and then finally what column did you want to get that data out of. And so hopefully if I've got all this right the first time, that'd be pretty impressive. Let's go and have a look. Okay, so we've got that all built now. Now I'll go back to the designer, go back to our label, and we're going to say variable output, whatever, doesn't really matter. Was it email? Get email address, there we go. Alright, so pretty complex stuff. Hope this works the right first time, but doesn't always do that way. Alabama, Lawton Fuzzens, 6 Anderson Court. There we go. So we've got Lawton Fuzzens 2m at skyrock.com. So that's how you can go and get that. Now that's really useful if you just wanted to show it as a representation, but what if you actually wanted to pass that back to a SharePoint column. Well, we could do that. So going back to the designer, we've got an email control now, so we can pop that down there. And what we can do is, let's just call it email rather than email one. And we'll make that read only is true. I don't want them changing Lawton Fuzzin's email address. So how do we get that value from the email address there into the email control? So we'll go and do a rule. So add new rule, and we'll say populate email control. And we will say, what do we say? If site is filled, so if you've made a selection in the site, then which one was it? Email value. You've got the insert button here, so now you can come through here and you can say form variables, get email address. Else we can say make it blank. I don't think that's very likely, but okay. So now we're ready to go. Select preview. We're going to select states, Alabama. Select Lawton Fuzzin's. Select the site or the project site. And now we can see Lawton Fuzzin's email has been populated. So that's answering the question that we had around, do we support cascading dropdowns for new responsive? Absolutely, it's all there. You can have cascading dropdowns, you can filter out unique values, and you can also get that data through some of those variables we're talking about as well. So hopefully you found that useful. Let me know in the comments. Cheers.